Okay, so we learned that mathematicians use different tools, from counters to 10 frames, to any little small pieces of things, to the hundreds chart, to different shapes and different strategies, from counting by ones, twos, fives, tens, asking a friend, talking forwards, or counting forwards, counting backwards, drawing a picture to help them. All of that are strategies that they use to help solve and explore problems. What math tools, strategies did you use today as you solved and explored problems?
I used I drawed some pictures and I used some shapes.
And how did that help you out? What was the problem you were trying to solve? I guess I should start with that. What were you trying to do?
Making a dance room.
Okay, so as you were making your dance room, how did drawing the picture of your plan and using shapes help you out?
Well, I made a little line, and then I made all the shapes, and then on the other side I did what my the dance room looked like.
Okay, and how did it help to draw out your plan? How did that help you?
I can remember what it looks like.
Okay, who else? Go ahead. There's some at the back.
And
Who
I did
else?
some writing.
Okay, so who else can tell me about a tool or strategy they used today? Cardo, you actually used one. Where were you today? What were you doing?
Miss Dunsinger's Bakery.
And what did you have to do at Miss Dunsinger's Bakery?
Mountain.
You did, and you chose to make the mountain cookies, except Miss Dunsinger had some funny rules at her bakery, because she thought that if she put the cookies in the oven, does anyone know what sometimes happens when you put cookies in the oven and it gets really hot? What happens to the cookie dough?
It gets hard. It gets hard.
Yeah, something else happens to the cookie dough.
It burns, and then there's fire, and then everywhere's burned, and then you can't live there.
Okay, that would be like if you came to actually eat at Miss Dunsinger's house. But what else sometimes happens to the cookie dough when it goes in the oven? When the heat goes, something happens to it.
It gets baked.
It does. It spreads out. Have you baked cookies before?
In my mouth.
Excellent. Okay, so it spreads itself out. And I want you to think about that, because I told you that on the big cookie sheets, how many cookie doughs, or how many cookies were you allowed, Ricardo?
10 and 5.
Which one on the big one?
10.
And how many on the small one?
5.
So what did you keep doing, Ricardo, as you were making your cookies?
Jordan helped
Yeah.
me make that idea of the mountain cookies, though.
Okay, and when you made your cookies, though, what did you do?
I tried to follow along with Jordan because he made like a spike, like a mountain.
He did, except were you using the big cookie sheet or the little cookie sheet?
Big.
So how many cookies were you allowed, Ricardo? So what did you keep doing to make sure that you followed Miss Dunsinger's cookie rule?
Count
How did you count them, Ricardo?
by 10.
Did you? You just looked and you just said 10?
20, 30.
Is that how you count?
40, 50, 60,
Oh, now, hold on, Ricardo.
90, 100.
Okay, now that would be, if there were 10 cookies on a sheet, then he could count the total number of cookies that need to go in the oven. But how did you count the number of cookies on your tray, Ricardo? No, I think you do. Think for a minute. How did you count to make sure that you were okay on numbers?
But I counted by 2.
Did you? You went 2, 4, 6, 8, 10?
Maybe
No, what did you do?
by 1.
Okay, but you did something else. You counted by ones and then you said something like, oh, Jordan, we have 7 cookies. And then what did you tell me afterwards?
We need 3 more.
done. How did you know that we needed 3 more?
I counted
Well, tell me how you counted.
by one.
So you counted from 7, you counted on 8, 9, 10. And then you said, Jordan, we have 8 cookies. And then what did you say?
We have 9. And then we had 10.
Right. And as you said, we had
And then-
8. How many more did you tell them we
I
needed?
don't know how much we have now.
Did you fill a whole cookie tray?
No.
No.
But I don't know how much we
So
have
what will
now.
you have to do then?
Count.
So today, as a mathematician, you, he counted them. And not only did he count them, he made them first. So instead of just counting in his head and pretending how many would have to go on it, he used the Play-Doh and he made the cookies and then he counted them as he went. Ricardo was a mathematician today. Who else was a mathematician today? Divya, what did you do?
Well, I made like a big cookie and then I counted how much I need sprinkles. And then I decided how much would I want. If I wanted 15 or 11 or 10 or 5.
And how did you count them as you made them to make sure you had the right number?
Well, I got to 15, which I wanted, but
How did you count them though?
I counted by ones and I made sure I didn't count I didn't count the same one. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
So she counted by ones and she tapped as she went, which I'm just telling people because they can't see this, so I want to make sure that they know what you were doing. So hold on a minute. So it turns out then that bakers need to use math.
Yeah.
They need to use math as they count. And builders need to use math. How did you use math as a builder today, Mariana?
I used math because the other tower I put a flat surf and a tall surf. A flat one, tall, flat, tall.
And why did that pattern help you?
Because if I just put the other ones like I did before, it will fall down.
So the flat one made it more stable. So you know what? The patterns, even as a builder, they use patterns to help keep their structure sometimes stable.
I have something about one day.
Yeah?
When I was at home one day, my auntie was here one day. I was hungry. My mom was making French fries for me in the oven, and then a little later, it was started to get all hot, and then sparks came out of the oven.
Oh.
So we had to call 911, and then they came, and then somebody had to give us a new oven,
Oh.
and it's white.
Oh, so you have a new. So that one kind of reminded you of our talk before about the oven. Not as much about math. Although it could be about math. What should you do when you put things in the oven? What do bakers need to remember to do?
Make sure it doesn't go on fire.
And how do they make sure of that? What do they tend to do? Right, but what do they do? Recipes tell us this all the time. A recipe tells us something to make sure that the stuff doesn't go on fire. When we turn the oven, so we turn the oven to a certain temperature, so if it says 350 degrees, we turn it to that, and then what else does the recipe tell us?
It's sort of like how Marianne's story was. Well, once, my mom was cooking, and then she was making sure that our food was met, and then there was like fire coming out. Then it came onto the towel, and then she was like, then she was like holding it on the parts, and it almost start to go up, and then she put in water quickly.
Oh, so what do we need to do as a baker when we put things in the oven? What should we look at to make sure that to kind of help us out, I guess. Yes?
Time.
How does the time help us, Alicia?
Because if it's hot a lot,
Yeah.
and you put on a different number, it won't be that good.
Okay, well, right, but it'll tell us like, okay, so there's the temperature for it, so it'll tell us like 350 degrees, but how does the time help us in a recipe? What does it do?
If you're watching a fire and the fire falls down, you gotta make sure it doesn't go too close to the logs, so it wouldn't get your house on fire. And if people is still in there, you won't have to go in and tell them.
Okay, but Sarah, I think we could avoid the fire if we pay attention to the time in the recipe. How can the time in the recipe help us out? If it says 15 minutes, what does that mean?
You gotta put on 15 minutes.
And if we put it on longer than that, what's likely to happen?
It will burn.
So a baker uses time all the time to make sure that they keep their things in the oven for just long enough so it doesn't.
Burn.
And then we don't have these stories like with the things catching on fire.
Yeah,
Right?
like the towels in the oven.
I know.